If you're like me, you probably thought the Boxing Day tsunami came out of the blue, that the giant wave took all those lives without warning. But now I've met a scientist, Dr Kerry Sieh. No one knows more about this subject than him, and last year he actually warned the Indonesian government a tsunami was on the way. He even handed out brochures to villagers showing them how to save themselves. The trouble is, no one took the slightest bit of notice. Now he's predicting another, even more devastating tsunami. One can only hope that this time they're listening. Listen carefully, because this is Dr Kerry Sieh's new prediction.
I think that we can probably say right now how big it will be. I will bet that the next significant earthquake here will be at least an 8.2 and possibly an 8.7 or a little larger. So this is the one that we think will produce the granddaddy.
Where we are now.
Yeah.
Dr Sieh, the geology professor at California Institute of Technology, knows Indonesia's earthquake zone like the back of his hand. That's why he was able to forecast the Boxing Day quake and why he predicts another now. More on that forecast later, but first, why did this happen and why so many deaths? This is the most telling 40 seconds of video of all. It clearly shows why so many never stood a chance. At first, the water in this Banda Aceh street is about ankle depth. Moments later, the speed is so fast and the volume so great, it's meters deep, up to first floor level. It's a deadly soup of cars, trees, houses, and of course people. No wonder the tsunami's death toll is now passing 300,000. Now, in a sense, you've spent your whole life anticipating this. Now that it's happened, how do you feel?
I'm not surprised. It's traumatic to see the damage. It's traumatic to see people's lives so abruptly changed, so many lost. But it's part of what we're going to be seeing more of in the 21st century.
Dr Sieh's focus is on the fault line, 5,000 kilometres long, where moving plates of the Earth's crust grind against each other. The plate under the Indian Ocean slides beneath Indonesia, much like the disappearing stairs on an escalator. But some sections get stuck and then later snap upwards, releasing gargantuan force.
The plates get hung up and they can't slip past each other, and so the upper plate gets dragged down as this plate sinks, and with it the islands get dragged down slowly but surely, and then when the earthquake happens they pop back up and out.
And that's what happened last Boxing Day. The quake jolted the mainland so violently that people were thrown to the ground.
It was deceptive in that there was no typical wave formation, but it was moving so quickly and it was so engulfing, and I thought, this is bad. This is very bad.
Sean Devitt, a producer here on 60 Minutes, was holidaying on Thailand's Phi Phi Island.
These waves just keep coming. There used to be a restaurant down there.
After a massive surge hit the resort just after breakfast, he grabbed a camera and raced to the beach to see the damage. He was just in time for a second surge.
Shit! It was like a shadow chasing you up the beach. It was always there behind you, no matter when you looked around. And fortunately there was a tree nearby, and I scrambled up this tree as quick as I could, thinking, I've got to get up here. I'm up a tree. It just came in so quick.
Some who survived the surge attempted to save a woman who'd been sucked under.
The colour in her face, we knew that it wasn't good, and we tried the best we could to revive her, but it was just, she was too far gone. You know, from the early things that I saw, I thought, this can't get any worse. And I was so wrong. We had to pronounce it dead.
If you wander around the destruction in the aftermath of a war, or where some terrorist bomber has gone about his business, then at least there's someone to blame. And in a sense, there's also a solution. Because if just those two sides would solve their differences, then there wouldn't be all that suffering. But who do you blame for all of this? Oh my God! For Dr Sieh, science has the answer. He's a regular visitor to these Mentawai Islands to monitor the fault line directly below. The most useful archives are underwater. The layers of coral reveal the sea floor's geological history.
The corals show very clearly that the islands, uniformly along this stretch, the islands are submerging at precipitous rates. All these trees are show they're getting drowned, and the beaches are encroaching on the land as the land sinks, and so it's a very visually dramatic manifestation of strain accumulation.
On land, he measures this more precisely. It's not easy. Treks through humid jungle to mountaintops where Dr Sieh has installed 14 satellite tracking stations.
How are you doing?
So what have we discovered?
Well, this is actually where we have the battery.
GPS readings show the islands not just sinking, they're being shoved sideways, year by year, by the two plates grinding against each other below.
Means that about every 200 years, all that strain, all that squishing of the spring is released in a giant earthquake.
He found the fault ruptures in different sections at different times, and a massive earthquake was due because each section erupts about every 200 years. Alarmed by this, Kerry Sieh began sounding a warning.
We started just 6 months ago handing out the posters and brochures and giving lectures in churches and lectures in classrooms.
He also alerted the Indonesian government, and then came Boxing Day.
First we thought it was this beautiful North Shore Hawaii wave. You know, my little mind went, oh, how pretty. And as we realized that there are no waves in this bay.
American travellers Julie Sobolowski and her son Casey were on a sailing holiday off Thailand when a 10-metre wave came out of nowhere. They were about to go snorkeling near a small island.
Tried to outrun it. We turned the boat and we were trying to head away from it, and it became very obvious very quickly that there was no way that was going to happen. It was coming very fast, so we turned back into it and took it bow on.
They sailed behind the island at precisely the right time. The reef took the full force. Other boats weren't so lucky.
I had no idea that there was so much force that it literally blew them apart. You know, the boats just were splintered. You know, we just started pulling people out of the water. So at one point we had 20 people on the boat that didn't speak English, and I remember trying to tell them to, you know, sit down, hold on, and it was very scary.
Of course, it's no comfort to hear that Dr Sieh predicted all this, but the truly frightening part is he's predicting it will all happen again at another section of the fault line. When, he says, soon.
The data is not going to get a whole lot better than this. This is going to happen. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the chances are pretty high that it'll happen within the life of the children running around the streets. Whether it's a few weeks or a few decades, I don't know.
Professor Kerry Sieh is the preeminent world authority on earthquakes in this region. Nobody knows more than he does. Now, remember what happened. There's the big island of Sumatra. Up here, Aceh, where all the damage was, and the earthquake occurred just off here. Down here, a series of little islands where the professor has his measuring stations, and right here is where he says the next big one is going to be. Directly opposite is this place, Padang, a city of 1 million people. I mean, this place has trouble dealing with a high tide. The effects of a tsunami here are almost beyond comprehension. Imagine a city the size of Brisbane wiped off the map. Banda Aceh all over again?
You know, people can't just run out of Padang. You know, it's impossible. You know, it's too big. So you feel an earthquake, you get a 15-minute warning, and next thing you know, the tsunami's coming down the street with barrels of oil and cars and wood, and you just run for your life. Some of you make it, some of you don't.
The city of Padang is a base for Australians coming to surf the renowned waves of the Mentawais. The waves hit the islands out of super deep water, creating some of the best surfing breaks in the world. Chris Scurra from Melbourne runs a surf charter business out of Padang, and his American partner, Christine Fowler, runs a hotel. They're heeding the earthquake warnings because Dr Sieh has warned them once before.
He said as soon as they saw the water rushing out of the river, I had a half an hour to get across that bridge and up that hill.
On Boxing Day, the water rushed in and out of the river for most of the day.
And it was rushing out really fast. This was amazing. I looked down to the bank of the river and there were crabs running, trying to catch up with the water. So my heart started beating like a million miles an hour, and I thought of Kerry, because I had sat and chatted with Kerry here one evening, and he had told me what would happen during a tsunami.
Everyone's listening to Dr Sieh now. He's returning to see the islanders he warned last year. They put on a hero's welcome, and this time they hang on his every word. He shows them the evidence that tsunamis can wipe out vulnerable places like this in just moments. His message is simple. If you feel the earth shake, run for the hills.
And they'll be scared, but hopefully that'll be a wonderful wake-up call for them. Okay, time to get up onto the hill here. So we've taught them, come up the hill and get here by 15 minutes, because if you don't, you might have a tsunami that will kill you.
Coming again! Coming again! Back up!
Dr Sieh says it's always difficult to convince people to prepare for an earthquake that might happen. But with 300,000 lives lost from just a momentary shudder, he's hoping that the world will listen to the warnings he's now given.
I think it's quite possible, it's quite likely that there'll be million-person losses because of geological happenings in the 21st century.
You can't stand here and say there are a million are going to die.
Sure.
Something should be done about it.
Well, I'd love to have something done about it, but in a way, a lot of us geologists feel like Jeremiahs. You know, we feel like we're, or John the Baptist, a voice calling in the wilderness. I know we're going to try our best to communicate what could happen, and then we'll see what the leaders of the community, what the leaders of the country want to do. But Indonesia isn't alone. You know, many countries have hazards like this, and many countries will, in the 21st century, given the status quo anyway, will lose hundreds of thousands of people.
Hello, I'm Sarah Arbo. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our Extra Minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.